Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Homie, thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a great show for you today on Friday, April the 12th. First, let's talk about the struggles of little brother Ralph Yarl. This is the black teenager who was shot in the head by a white neighbor for simply knocking on the wrong door. We'll share with you how parents and the community are helping our little brother cope. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also, will black businesses go out of business as a court ruling has come down? We'll talk about the implication of the federal government deciding to move forward or to dismantle the one agency that helps to empower black businesses. We'll talk a little bit about that. And later on, we're going to be checking in with our sisters Kimberly Morrow, Corinna Denise, and of course with you for our Big Culture Convo.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. And we got a lot to talk about. Folks, we are streaming on our home platform of blackstarnetwork.com. Make sure you go to our website today, download the app for free, and follow us on social media at Black Star Network. And while you're online, make sure you just put something in the bucket to help us to continue to power through this digital space, creating content that's just for you. And more importantly, to make a presence like no other, leaving our digital footprint to be big and massive. So your support makes a world of difference as we have these important conversations about the culture, about the issues, and more importantly, about Black America. And we want you to make sure that we can feel your love and your support. So go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com and we thank you for your donation. Also, folks, we are streaming on Amazon platforms, on Amazon News and your Fire TV. Make sure you also check us out on Amazon Prime Video. You can just check us out on the Prime Video app under Live TV, The News, or find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, then Live TV, The News. We're also streaming on the Freevee network, where you can find us on now under News for Black Star Network, as well as Plex TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just search for Black Star Network or find us under Live TV, The News and Opinion. So you can find us there on Plex TV. All right, folks, we're also streaming on Big Brother Roland Martin's social media spaces. So you can see us on his Facebook page. We're streaming on the X platform as well as the YouTube channel. And that's where you will find the illustrious Culture crew. You can find them, all the great folks there from checking in from all around the country. And big shout out to the Online Culture crew that's always bringing the discussion and always keeping the show very interesting with your feedback. And I appreciate each and every one of you. And more importantly, for those who are just brand new to this whole process, this is your opportunity to join the conversation with people from around the country and in different parts of the world. And with me, as we have these discussions on air, you're having the discussions in the chat, and we bring it all together. So this is certainly a one of a kind experience here on The Culture. All right, folks, speaking of experience, let me get the ball rolling. And I'm joined by my sister. She joins us every Friday. She's a parent and educational advocate. She serves as the founder and principal of the Doris L. Morrow Online Academy. And we are always happy to have my sister joining me. My sister, Kimberly Morrow, is joining us once again. Kim, good afternoon. How you feeling this afternoon? Uh-oh, wait a minute. We got you on mute, Kim. We can't hear you. Oh, there we go. Let me see. There we go. No.
Got it.
There we go. There we go, Kim. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great.
Good, good. It's good to see you.
Sorry, I had it on mute.
Oh, it's all good. It is all good. All right, Kim, let's talk about this first story, which is something that I saw and I was like, you know what, this would be a perfect conversation to have with Kim. As you know, of course, you're working with in the educational space, but you also are a parent advocate. You work with parents, and you also work with parents on a lot of different issues, and not just in the schools, but outside of schools and within the community. But we're talking about the struggles of little brother Ralph Yarl. And if, for those who are not familiar with Ralph Yarl, and this, if you've never heard of him, which is going to be quite interesting, he was the Missouri teenager who was shot in the head after he rung the wrong door, the bell of the wrong door of a white neighbor in Kansas City, Missouri. And y'all remember, he was shot in the head by an older white man when he simply just tried to knock on the door, and he was thinking he was going to pick up one of his family members from that residence, and it ended up not happening. And so he was shot by Andrew Lester, an 85-year-old man who fired multiple shots from a handgun. They grazed Yarl in the head and struck him in the arm. And he was telling police that he shot at Ralph Yarl because he was scared. Well, that was a year ago. Now, a year later, we are at a point where little brother Ralph Yarl is still trying to cope with this tragic event. The true blessing is he's still alive. That's the true blessing of this whole story. But now he has to go through a lot of changes. He describes it as being an uphill battle, Kim, in terms of restoring his mental health and getting himself back on track. He recently did an interview with NBC News, and he said that his situation, that this recovery process has taken so much of him and taken so much out of him that he decided to skip his senior prom because he was afraid people would ask him about the shooting and he wasn't sure how he would respond. And he also said that his brain doesn't process dense information the way it once did. I'm going to share with you what he said. Take a look at this. This is a direct quote from Ralph Yarl. He said, it's definitely a bumpy journey. Let's go back to the first quote, please. There we go. It's definitely a bumpy journey. He said in his first in-depth interview about the shooting and how it affected him 1 year later. He said, whenever there's something that goes on that reminds me of what happened, I just have like such a negative wave of emotions like anger, like disgust. It's always a mix of good and bad days. And I feel like the good days are when I'm able to be around people that help me build myself up. He also said that surviving the shooting has forced him to tend to his mental health. He said it's a constant uphill battle. Wow. Wow. Kim, I want to get your take on this as we look at his struggles. How does a family, how does a community handle a situation like this?
First of all, let me just say this. My heart and prayers and everything goes out to the Yarl family. And I always think it's interesting when people want to check in 1 year later as if the 1 year mark is this arbitrary time period we set for ourselves that you should be okay within a year. And we tend to do that with death as well. If I can get through that first year, I'll be okay. Well, this is just like a death. A part of himself died, right? The way his life was prior to the shooting, that is no more. And it takes time. So what I would remind the family and those around him is that it is going to take him as long as it needs to take him. That 1 year mark is so arbitrary. It may take him 5, 10, it may take him the rest of his life to get to a place where this is a distant memory. That may never happen. So it's all about how can he utilize tools and coping strategies and understand that he probably won't get back to where he was. And now he has to figure out a new way of life. And a lot of times as loved ones, I don't want to say just as parents, but as loved ones, we love our family members. And I've had people to say to me a lot, I just want you to get back to how you were before.
Right.
I probably will never get back to how I was before. This is my new reality. And so I think taking that pressure off of him, that he probably won't get back to who he was before. There are too many things that has happened in his life. So creating a new normal and understanding that new normal. And I can definitely understand his unwillingness to want to go to prom because again, I'll liken it to a death. You know, people have such great intentions. They really are concerned and how are you and how's everything going? But a lot of times we don't want to relive that pain and that struggle and those memories. So I could understand why he would not want to attend his prom. So for all of the family members and friends who are near him, try to remember that one incident, while it has definitely changed his life, it doesn't have to be the defining moment of his life. Try to figure out other ways to interact with him so that he doesn't feel like every time somebody talks to me is going to be about that incident. Just loving him and sharing other things with him, and when he's ready to speak on it, allowing him to speak without getting into, oh, everything's gonna be okay, you're going to be okay. Nobody wants to hear that. We know at some point we will be okay, but he probably just wants to be Ralph and not get into all of that. So
And I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And you know, we're going to take another quick pause in a moment, but I didn't even know this part of the story, which is why I think it's important for us to bring this up there, that he has been mentally struggling to recover from this shooting. Matter of fact, his mom said that he suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, which is understandable.
I'm
Of course,
sure
he also
anxiety and
suffers from it.
depression as well.
Right. He also suffers from anxiety. Again,
Of course.
understandable. And in the past 3 months, Kim, and folks, if y'all didn't know, I didn't know this until I got into the story. The past 3 months, he has totaled 2 vehicles. He has drove 2 vehicles, totaled them in the past 3 months. And in one of the accidents, he crashed into a tree.
Wow.
So, I mean, my heart and prayers go out to him. And I don't think he should be behind a vehicle. I'm certainly not a doctor. But at this point, he's already got enough brain damage and head damage, right? And then you crash into a tree. And it's like, little brother, just take your time. And I'm in wholehearted agreement with you there, Kimberly, that just take your time.
Yes.
And don't let the people pressure you. But 2 vehicles, 3 months, you totaled. One of them, you ran into a tree. You suffering from PTSD. You suffering from anxiety. You probably have some,
Depression.
You say, like he said, he can't process the information well. Certain information, disinformation. That's a lot. That's a lot. And this little brother is only 17 years old, Kimberly.
Mm-hmm.
He's only 17 years old.
And he probably wasn't pressured by other people to get back to normal. A lot of times we put that pressure on ourselves. I know when I suffered the loss of my mother and brother, they died within 6 weeks of each other. And in my mind, I had it set up. I just have to get through this first year. Once I get through this year, I'll be okay. I put that pressure on me. And the reason why I'm comparing that situation with his is because a loss is loss. Grief is grief. He's suffering from the postpartum, but he's also having to grieve the loss of who he was.
That's true. That's true.
And begin to accept who he is now. That's very difficult. And I can understand him putting pressure on himself to get back to who he was, which that may not happen. He really has to figure out, with the help of his family and therapists and doctors, what a new life will look like for himself.
And you know what? And I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's often the hardest part of the process, is that you have to get past your own demons and your own view of yourself to a place where you become more accepting that you do have a new life, you do have a different reality, and the culture of our times is that, like you mentioned earlier, you can get through it in a very, very short period of time. This is a life-changing situation for this little brother.
Yes.
We don't know what his life would have been or what his trajectory could have been in terms of his mental capabilities and all of those things before the shooting, but that's going to be the hard part. And that's hard for adults. So I can only imagine how hard it is for a young brother who is 17 years old, who thought he had his whole life ahead of him, that he would do, something as simple as knocking on the wrong door would lead to a simple misunderstanding. Now you're talking about literally kind of starting from ground zero and understanding certain things, certain processes. Now you have new challenges, mental health challenges that you have to confront and overcome, or even learn how to manage, you know what I'm saying, from your anxiety and PTSD on a daily basis. So it's a lot. It is a
lot. And from what I've read in the articles that I've seen and some of the interviews, he seems to have a very supportive family and network of people behind him. And so I would just, say to them, just understand that this process is going to take a lot of time in trying
Absolutely.
to make sure that he's continuing to get the support he needs from doctors and therapists. And
Yeah.
at this point, even group meetings could be helpful. I know that was very helpful for me, going to group therapy meetings. So, and just understanding that this is going to take as long as it's going to take.
It's going
Don't
to take as
rush
long
the
as it's going to
process.
take. Absolutely. Karen Connor, my sister, you said my heart and prayers are with Brother Ralph. His parents should file a lawsuit against that shooter for bodily injury, infliction of emotional distress, and discrimination. He should not drive. Absolutely not. And I agree with you. They should be following all types of lawsuits. And you're right. He should not be driving. At this point, they should be giving him some special privileges or something, the state or the city. I don't know. But he needs to get something, a handicap tag or something to make sure that he is safe. Now, when we got to take a quick pause when we come forward, I want to get your take on this, Kim, because not only is Ralph Yarl still talking about his things that have happened to him personally, he's still using his voice to speak up and be an advocate to talk about the larger issue of guns. So we're going to just share with you what he said about that, get Kimberly's take as well as yours. Stay with us. The conversation continues on the other side here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Game on. State of the Union 2024, huge night for President Joe Biden.
This was a CVS receipts type of night.
He dragged the hell out of the Supreme Court. And he said, y'all gonna see the power of women.
Trump's brain is melting as we speak.
We want to organize from a place of strength. There's no confusion whatsoever about what they've done and what they plan to do.
What Donald Trump is doing is presenting a fallacy.
He is convincing them that he's all in it for them, when in fact he's all in it for himself.
We do not feel Joe Biden, in spite of the success that have taken place during this administration economically. There are too many things where we do not feel like he's had our back.
You should also be investing in the barbershops and the beauty salons and the hookah bars and the folks who are going to the club, and there's a way to actually get them registered because we've done it before. But if you don't have folks who understand that dynamic, then you're missing a big opportunity.
So we said we just celebrated. For what? Why don't you go to celebrate rather than recommit yourself to the fight if the very thing we went to celebrate has been gutted?
Republicans did not support a lot of the bills that were necessary to keep the country fluid. You can't only love your country when you win, right?
Oh no, you guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut?
This was absolutely the knockdown, drag out that we were really waiting for.
Black voters are the base. They're the most important base of the Democratic Party. There was very few language in this speech. At a time we see an attack on black history, attack on DEI. The end of the BLM racial reckoning thing has come to a complete end because there was nothing in this speech for that.
Our movement has never been grounded in two-party politics in this country. All of our movements ultimately get co-opted by a state that is anti-black.
They called the old because they knew the way, and they called the young because they were strong. And I believe there is a good combination of that, but we can have ideas and we can have visions and dreams, but we have to have our young people also working beside us because they are strong and they will run that race and they will run it to the end.
Activists, organizers, and young people have been pushing this administration to be on the right side of history and to do something about the issues that they care about.
While the Ukraine and Palestine are critical issues, they are not the only global issues.
Not a single black person who should ever let it come out their mouth that I'm tired. Because there is somebody else who came before us who didn't stop fighting.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. I'm joined by my sister, Kimberly Morrow, who is an educator, parent advocate, and she serves as the founder of the Doris L. Morrow Online Academy. As we talk about the struggles of little brother Ralph Yarl, who was shot in the head by a white neighbor a year ago. And there's our picture of our little brother, and how he talks about how he's still struggling to this day. Struggles with mental health, struggles with post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, still not able to process certain information and so much more. But there is a silver lining in his story outside of him just being alive from that vicious attack from that 85-year-old man, Andrew Lester. The fact is that even now, Kimberly, he has said that he is going to allow this shooting to serve a purpose, that he's hoping that it will shed a light on the importance of this overall conversation around guns, because in his home city of Kansas City, last year, they went on record to have 182 homicides. That's the highest it has been, considered to be one of the deadliest years on record for Kansas City. The previous record of 176 homicides was set back in 2020. But little brother Ralph and his classmates said that they wanted his shooting to motivate people to combat gun violence. He said, "I just feel that we haven't learned." And he's saying that at this point that he is advocating for people to use other ways to solve differences outside of the use of guns. He said he feels guilty that his shooting didn't lead to a decrease in gun violence. He said, "It just feels like a failure on my part." Wow.
And that's the part of the quote that really hurts me, because he should not be taking that on. That is not a failure on his part. That is a failure on the part of society, who is failing to act in good, in good sense. He is not the only person who has been shot. We have had so many shootings. So for him to take that on, oh, that was heartbreaking when I read that he felt that way, that he felt guilty for other people's actions. He in no way, shape, or form should feel guilty. That is completely on them.
I mean, and I totally agree. And I think it just goes to show you the type of heart that he has, that he's like, even though he went through this tragedy, even though he's struggling, he still has a heart for other people to advocate, and more importantly, to even feel guilty. You know what I'm saying? To even feel guilty. But he's a young brother. He has a view of the world, and we respect that. But I think it speaks to just this ongoing conversation about guns and how America loves guns, and more importantly, how America is very weak about gun control in this country. That it doesn't even we hear about Ralph Yarl, and we can talk about all of the mass shootings that happen in schools and everything. And it's like there seems to be nothing, Kimberly, that will encourage Congress or state legislatures to take a more aggressive stance on this issue of gun control. Like, children can die, literally. And then people will still be like, but I still need my guns. And it's not even, okay, so we're not even talking about taking away guns, but I'm talking about even enforcing more guidelines. Right. Enforcing more restrictions on this situation. Children are literally dying in this country. And there's been data that has come out that said that gun violence is the #1 killer of children in this country. This is wide open. This is not a Democrat or Republican data. This is just the facts is the facts. And this country still has a hard time trying to get control of its guns. And more importantly, there's gun owners. And we even talked about just a few days ago of the killer's parents in Michigan, and how his parents were prosecuted, and still there's no aggressive stance. So where do we go from here from your vantage point?
I'm at a loss. and you know, I guess where my loss really comes from is I have read the Second Amendment, but it's probably a sentence long, so many times, and I have tried to figure out how do they get to where they get to. It's my Second Amendment right. It says the right to bear arms for a state militia. I'll look it up on my phone and tell you exactly what it says. But
Yeah.
I still really do not understand. I don't even understand how they get to it's the right of us to have these assault weapons and to have all of these other weapons based on that Second Amendment. This has boggled my mind for so many years. So I am at a loss here, Farajii.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm at a loss too. And I feel like unless a high-profile individual gets shot and killed or shot and hurt, that we may see some movement on this. But it's almost, and let me just keep it real with you. It's like when we do have mass shootings, school shootings, public shootings, right? You almost don't want to talk about it because it becomes this circular conversation where we talk about how bad guns are or how lax the restrictions are, and then we're back to, and then people say, "Well, I should have a right to own my gun because according to the founding documents," and it's like, okay, but there's no real progression. There's no real movement. And I remember having conversations like this late last year, and there were some Republican lawmakers and legislators who were making Christmas photos with, standing next to the tree and with holding a gun. I'll never forget a photo. I forgot the lawmaker's name. But he had his whole family of children holding guns next to the tree, holding the Bible. It's like, bruh, what the hell is going on?
It's as though it's become so political. But this is what the Second Amendment says. So I had to go pull it up because I'm like, okay. Yeah. It says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Wow.
I don't know how they, I mean, I guess it says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, but come on, they have figured out a way to rewrite all of these other or misinterpret all of these other constitutional amendments. But for some reason, this one right here, they continue to support it in a way where it's just not good for our nation, not just our children, but people in general. When you can have somebody shooting out of a window at a hotel on a crowd in Las Vegas that year, when that occurred, it's mind-boggling. It's ridiculous.
Mind-boggling.
But I do want to go back to Ralph Yarl, where he was taking on this guilt, because that is a part of the mental health that he's dealing with. When he's assuming all that guilt, that is really a sign of depression as well. Instead of understanding that these are other people's actions. So I'm really concerned about that statement that he made and that he's taking that on as though somehow that's his fault, that these people are still perpetuating this this gun violence, and that our legislators are doing nothing to stop it. So I mean,
look, my hands are up in the air about it. But look, I think we should continue to pray for our brother, a little brother, continue to hold him up in the light, and continue to make sure that his story will always be remembered, and that the family is supported, especially in the Kansas City area. I know we have some of our great culture crew members in the Kansas City area, but making sure that our little brother doesn't fall into, and it's very easy when you survive a tragedy like this, you fall into deep depression, you fall into drug use and alcohol use and abuse. It's a lot of things. So, just to keep that family in prayer and surround them with love, And God willing, they will be able to get through this time, and our little brother will find some semblance or get back, not saying get back, but will find a path to normalcy for this chapter of his life. But we will continue to, always remember this tragic situation, and we thank God that our little brother is alive to still tell his story. We got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, speaking of telling our story, let's talk about how Black businesses are on the fence and in the hot seat because of a ruling that came down just a few weeks ago. But more importantly, what does that mean for the future of Black business? As we're asking the question, will Black business go out of business at this point? Stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
I need you to scream for your new beginning. 5, 4, 3, 2. I need you to shout for it. I need you to shout for it. It won't always be like this. Sooner or later, it's gonna work in your brother's favor, in your sister's favor. They shall not die. They shall not die. They shall not die. I want you to embrace somebody and tell them welcome to the greatest season of your life. Hug somebody, welcome.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sister, great contributor, Kimberly Morrow, who is an educator and founder of the Doris L. Morrow Online Academy. And let's talk a little bit about something that you brought to my attention, Kimberly, which was a decision that came down from a judge in the state of Texas, the Northern District of Texas. And you said, Farajii, can we at least mention about the plight that Black businesses are facing, especially in light of this political year where judge appointments are so pivotal. And we're seeing this more and more and more, how states all across this country are taking down or dismantling, everything from certain rights to certain systems that were created and designed to empower Black and brown and those of us who are often been marginalized in this country. And so I wanted to, let's talk a little bit about this situation about Black businesses, because there was a major ruling that happened about a month ago where the Minority Business Development Agency was cited. This is a federal agency under the Biden-Harris administration, where it's essentially was penalized by Judge Mark T. Pittman of the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Texas, where he said this particular agency's mission to help disadvantaged Black business owners or owner of businesses owned by Black people, Hispanic, and other racial or ethnic groups gain access to capital and contracts violates the rights of all Americans to receive equal protection under the Constitution. Essentially, that the Minority Business Development Agency is wrong for only supporting Black, Latino, and other racial groups, minorities in the country. And now they are forced to support white business owners as well. This is big. We didn't talk about this 30 days ago, but you brought it to the attention. So I was like, yeah, let's see what's going on. Why is this story so important for you to bring up?
Whew. All right, so let's back up a minute. Last year in June, the Supreme Court ruled on the affirmative action cases that were brought against Harvard, et cetera, the Ivy League schools, saying that they couldn't use, race in their admissions consideration. And I'm sure a few people in our community probably thought, oh, that doesn't impact all of us because that had to do with Harvard or with the Ivy Leagues. They are using that ruling to now attack everything. And our businesses is one of the latest things that they're attacking. Why is this important? Because first of all, we already make up such a small number of businesses in the United States. That's a fact. You can look it up. And I'll try to give you the numbers. Okay, I'll give. Oh, here we go. I think it's like. Okay, listen. Let me come back to the numbers. I'm not really good with numbers. I think it was okay. I'll come back to the numbers. But for example, with women, only 4% of Black women-owned startups and businesses were able to raise equity funding in 2022. So even though Black women have been the fastest group or the largest group to start businesses recently, I think it's like 42% of new businesses were started by Black women. We are the least funded group. And this goes for African American males as well. But I really want to focus on Black women because they started so many new businesses recently. They were the largest group that started new businesses. But the funding is different. We're not receiving the same funding. So when you have organizations like the Small Business Administration who are giving out money for Black-owned businesses to help them stay afloat, that is big, it's huge. Another organization was targeted called Fearless Fund, which was started by African American women to support African American women business owners. And they have been challenged in court for the same thing because they are not reaching out to white-owned businesses or providing that to white-owned businesses. They're not suffering in the area of receiving funding. They receive funding. That is not their issue. It's our issue. And so the article, the information that I was reading also said Black businesses, it's like we're constantly in this state of fundraising.
Yep.
Because we do not have enough operating costs. So, we don't have enough money to cover our operating costs. So we're constantly in this area of we've got to fundraise just to keep our business afloat. A lot of times these small businesses, they can only afford to, hire a few people. We're not able to hire as many people as we would like. So when you say start a business so we can help other Black people, we can employ our people, we're unable to do that because we're constantly trying to raise money to do that. And we're at such a disadvantage. And so when you have court rulings that are saying, well, no, you have to open it up for white businesses as well, who are not struggling to get funding, now you're putting Black-owned businesses at a further disadvantage. And so now we're having to figure out other ways to raise that funding. And why did I want to talk about this? Because as we're talking about the election,
yeah,
and we want to focus on what Joe Biden is not doing, we need to remember, and people who are getting on the Trump bandwagon, I don't know if there really are a lot of people getting on the Trump bandwagon, but some people may be. We have to realize that these were Trump appointees to the Supreme Court that dismantled that affirmative action. So when we talk about voting in our own interest, and you want to vote Trump back, this is the impact of his presidency. We are seeing the impact on our being able to, our consideration for colleges. We're seeing the impact on our businesses being funded. So these are real impacts that affect not just a small majority of people. So because, there's a small percentage of African Americans that are applying to Ivy League, so I get that part, but there are a large number of regular people like you and I who are starting businesses as a way out. And we talk about all the time about not having to work for a company so that we can be our authentic selves. But now that's being shut down.
And well, you know what? And as we close out, I mean, we have discussed this, and I've talked about it with my sister Suzette Speaks. Roland has talked about it, but I think the point you just made is the point that we need to keep in mind, which is this is a judge in Texas who's made this decision saying that, hey, this minority business agency is discriminating against white people. And it just goes to show us, as we have said this during this message time and time again on this platform, it comes down to those judges. It comes down to those decision makers, right? This is not a presidential thing. This is a state thing. This is a judge thing, right?
But but Farajii, that's not true, because he looked at the U.S. Supreme Court's decision on the affirmative action case to guide his decision. Which those judges were appointed by.
Now those judges were appointed, absolutely.
They were appointed by President Trump. So
and you know what, Kimberly?
Trickling down effect.
That's exactly it. That's what we're talking about. That's what's at stake in this particular election. But more importantly, and we don't have a lot of time, we don't have the time to talk about it today, but we got to come up with a different plan of action for Black businesses. When you look at the numbers very quickly before we take on the final pause for the first hour, 39% of Black-owned businesses were owned by women in 2021, while men owned 53% of those businesses. In 2023 fiscal year, the SBA, the Small Business Association, they backed nearly 4,800 loans to Black-owned businesses, totaling about $1.45 billion, right? Black-owned businesses have employed 1.4 million employees in 2021. Now this is 2024, so those numbers can go up or down. And there are over 161,000 Black-owned businesses in the U.S., according to the Census Bureau. So we still got a long ways to go, but now we got to figure out, based on this new landscape and this ruling, that if the federal government is not going to provide the type of resources these businesses need, or they're not going to prioritize, because now that this judge said, hey, you need to equally divide the pie to white business owners as well, there's no point to have a minority business agency. There's no point. You know what I'm saying? Because white people aren't the minorities in America.
Right.
So this changes the landscape. And again, we talked about it, but it just goes to show, I wanted us to come back to it. It just goes to show that as much as some of us might say, oh, we just need to open up some business, economic development, the landscape is very, very challenging for business owners. And folks are saying, everybody's been saying, damn, we can't catch a break. And no, we can't. That's why we got to keep our foot on the gas and keep our eyes on the prize, as they say, to make sure that these things aren't forgotten. Look, I got to take another quick pause. When we come back, let's continue the conversation on the other side as we check in with our sister Corinna and Denise. And let's shift gears from talking about business to politics and continue the conversation as we look at this latest situation here, and how we're at a point, folks, that I term we're at a point where no more politics as usual. Either are we looking to comply, or are we looking to disrupt? That's the question. Are we complying with the system and the way things are, or are we looking to disrupt the system? We're going to have that conversation with Kimberly Morrow, Corinna Denise, and you. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we are streaming live on a number of different platforms. First, check us out on our home platform of blackstarnetwork.com, where you can download the app for free on all of your devices. Make sure you follow us on social media at Black Star Network. And we ask, more importantly, that you support us. If you agree, or if you like, or if you even feel like, you know what, this is a movement and this is some content that's worthy of support, then we truly ask you to be a part of the process, and more importantly, be an investor, be a stakeholder in this, as we are looking for supporters. So your donations makes a world of difference. As you heard Brother Roland Martin say, your donation makes a world of difference to us. So don't act as if any dollar amount is too small or anything like that. Whatever you can give to help us will be greatly, greatly appreciated. So just go to our website at blackstarnetwork.com for all of the latest information. Also, we're streaming live on Amazon platforms, on Amazon News, on your Fire TV, on Amazon Prime Video. You can check us out there. Find us on the Prime Video app under Live TV, The News, or find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, then Live TV, The News, or where you also check us out on the Freevee network, where you can find us on now under News and on Plex TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just search for Black Star Network or find us on the Live TV, The News, and Opinion. And we're also streaming on Big Brother Roland Martin's social media spaces. On his Facebook page, you can find us there. We're also on his YouTube channel, where you can find us there, as well as the Culture Crew is representing hard on the X platform. So big shout out to everyone that's tuning in from all the different spaces. We truly, truly appreciate y'all. In the second half of the show, I want to bring my sister Corinna Denise into the conversation. We're still joined by my other sister, Kimberly Morrow, and Corinna Denise is a college admissions advisor. She's also a political and strategist, and we're always happy to have her on Friday, so that way she can make me look real silly before the weekend starts. My sister Corinna, welcome to the show. And once again, how you feeling today, Corinna?
Hey, yes, y'all. Happy Friday. Oh, look at
Happy
Kimberly.
Friday.
Look at all lovely today.
Right. Kimberly looks great. You guys, you sisters look great. I'm up here in here with a t-shirt, feeling like it's Friday. Well, I appreciate y'all as always. So we talked a little bit about the judges and the impact of that, especially on certain decisions when we're talking about Black businesses. But then, you know, when we look at the bigger picture, Corinna, we're in a space right now where I think that there's a lot of uncertainty. And yesterday, of course, we talked about the announcement that came from Dr. West and about him choosing Dr. Melina Abdullah as his vice presidential pick moving forward. And even though we didn't have enough time, we didn't spend a lot of time, I wanted to kind of continue that part of the conversation because I feel like there is so much ground that still needs to be covered in this whole situation. When we're talking about what are the new ideas, what are the progressive ideas, where should Black America move forward on, where should we put our support behind? We know about the challenges. Now we're in a space where we're operating what I like to call no more politics as usual. And I mentioned this to Kim earlier today that I read this piece in The Atlantic about an author named Amanda Montell. She puts out a book called The Age of Magical Overthinking, which is an interesting read, but she talks about biases. And she says that in our cognitive biases, which is like what she describes as psychological shortcuts, and how we interpret the world around us, how do we see things, circumstances, people, events, and whatnot. But she said that there is a point where your cognitive bias can actually be outdated because the world that you're in is so far outside of your scope of thinking and your understanding that you actually could be working from an old reference point and versus being up to the times and seeing and understanding changes and the nuance of things. So I'm using this as like a foundation for our conversation because I feel like Black folks in this country, we are at a place where we're in a new space. We do have a man who has violated so many laws, but he's considered to be a candidate for president. We're dealing with some new challenges and some old challenges on the Democratic side. And now we have this thing with Dr. Cornel West bringing Dr. Melina onto his ticket. And this opens up the conversation about principle versus politics. We know that they're committed to the principles and to the ideas of Black liberation, but then we are also faced with the crossroad of whether we should support them in principle or whether we should support the political leader that seemingly seems like that has a better chance of winning the White House back. All right, just laid it out for you, Corinna. Talk to me.
Well, I definitely don't think that we are all in totality at a crossroads, Farajii. You know where I stand on this. I do not agree with getting behind any third-party candidate at this time, simply because we are not voting our maximum capacity as far as our numbers. We do not have the infrastructure to support a third party. And there is election data to back that up, where you see third-party candidates are on the ballot, the ones who are actually on the ballot, okay? Folks aren't turning out in the numbers needed to actually get them elected. That's even including folks in some of the local elections in different states. Right now, our crossroads is we need to re-elect Biden-Harris. That is our crossroads. Now, as I have said on this show before, when we start to maximize our voting power and we actually have the infrastructure behind us, then we can have a substantive conversation about third party. I've also spoken about, Dr. West. I think it's admirable. Personally, I would have liked to have seen him run for perhaps a House or a Senate seat. Again, we are not talking about that legislative branch, because if somehow Dr. West and Dr. Abdullah could magically become our president and vice president, where is the Congress and the Senate that they would need to get legislation passed? And for some reason, that just keeps flying under the radar, Farajii.
All right, look, we're going to take a quick pause because I'm about to get my fire extinguisher, so I got to go and get that real quick. But we're going to take a quick pause. Kimberly, I want to get your take on this. Crew, I want to hear from you as we're talking about redefining politics, comply or disrupt. I want to get your take. Which way should we go? Because we have a lot of pathways. And you heard what Corinna had to say. that we're talking about re-electing President Biden, Vice President Harris, and some of you might say, hey, we need to be disruptors. What say you, crew? Join us in the conversation as we're streaming live on Roland Martin's Facebook page, YouTube channel, and of course on the X platform. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. This is an opportunity for us to be able to speak to our issues. Y'all better understand something real quick. We ain't going nowhere. It is a continual battle that we see all across this country. Revolution will not be televised. The revolution will be streamed.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
He makes sure that our stories are told.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney, and if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sisters, Corinna Denise and Kimberly Morrow, as we have the conversation of redefining politics, whether we should be in a space of complying or disrupting. And Corinna said, look, this ain't the time to be playing no games. Too much is at stake and for the White House and more importantly for Congress. And we need to kind of keep this ship going. Kimberly, what's your take on this situation? Where do you stand on this?
Okay, so actually, I want to go back to the author that you talked about the cognitive etc.
bias.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. So I always believe in looking towards our history. So I don't know if that is contradictory to what she's saying, but I always believe in looking at our history. So when we look at Shirley Chisholm, she ran for the nomination. Okay, so I realize this is not for the nomination. I realize this he's running for president under a third party. So there's the difference there. But she ran for the nomination and everybody told her no, because we got to play this politic game, et cetera, et cetera. And then we see what happened with her. But there is an opportunity for us because we are so we're months out for the actual election. There is an opportunity now for African Americans to send a message to the Biden-Harris campaign that these are our issues as Black people. And so perhaps Cornel West and Dr. Molina may at some point throw their support behind Biden. Because here's the thing, and I understand what Corinna was saying about the whole third party being the spoiler, but here's the thing, there already is a third party spoiler in the mix. And if we sit back and don't take control of this thing, RFK is already set to be a spoiler. The Trump campaign is throwing their support behind him as a spoiler. So while we're just stuck on, we've got to support Biden no matter what, there already is a spoiler. So I say we need to take control of this situation, get behind Cornel West at the moment, try to send that message to the Biden-Harris campaign, and then hopefully Cornel West will end up saying, okay, we're going to support Biden because he's accepting our part of our platform. He's incorporating that into his platform, because I've looked at his platform. His platform is wonderful. And I don't see why the Biden-Harris campaign wouldn't take on some of his platform ideas. But here's the thing, we can't, as Black people, say, nope, we're only going to support Biden. We do have to be disruptors. I feel that way. I feel like we should, because we have so much time. We're not having this conversation and in 2 weeks the election takes place. I would think that would be very irresponsible of us to do that.
That's a good point.
I have to disagree. I'm going to push back a little, because I hear what you all are saying as far as being disruptors, and that's fine and everything. But it's Friday, April 12th, 2014. The election is November 5th, if I'm not mistaken, 2024. We should have already had our infrastructure in place if this is something that we were going to move forward.
Nah, not really.
Let's be honest here. Well, I'm going to push back on that. And let's unpack this a little bit more. What exactly message are we trying to send to the Biden administration? And I hear that, but something I do take issue with just in general, for example, on the mainstream media right now, what's happening with abortion, a lot of folks who are on those platforms on mainstream media are singly blaming Donald Trump for this. And he had henchmen. He could not do this alone. A president has to nominate Supreme Court justices. They then have to sit in front of the Senate, right? And the Senate has to vote them in, and then they're appointed to the bench. There were a lot of different things at play for that to happen. I'll also push back some more and say, okay, Biden and Harris, you're really pushing the thing with abortion. And yes, this is essential, it's important, but how come we didn't take the time to expand the Supreme Court? There are so many other different moving pieces here that I think are just flying under the radar. So I would like to know, what is the end goal with Dr. West? Is that the plan? Is that going to be clearly communicated to constituents that, oh, we're just using this as a disruptor? Because that's not the message that I'm receiving as far as his campaign is going. It looks like that he's actually serious about ascending to the Oval Office and not necessarily campaigning to be just a disruptor. But if I'm wrong, go ahead and.
Well, let me just say that this is what I came across. ABC News did a piece on him, on Dr. West, and I found this to be very interesting. I want to say this, and then we're going to go to our next pause. But let's put up quote one, please, Lisa, around it. This is ABC News when they said this. It's a lot, but I'm going to go right through it. Going forward, Dr. West's campaign has said they're attempting to get him on ballots in all 50 states. In January, they announced that he was launching a new political party, the Justice for All Party, in order to more easily gain access everywhere, as in some places it's easier, mostly because of signature requirements to get on the ballot as a member of a new party rather than an independent. Richard Wenger, a ballot access expert and political analyst, told ABC News that a number of past third-party or independent candidates have used patchwork methods the way West is attempting in order to get on more ballots. New party creation is achieved state by state, so West may be able to gain access to one place as an independent and another place as a member of the Justice for All Party, or even affiliated with other small parties. Let's take this down. Say if the Dr. West is moving in a direction where he's trying to establish a new party for those who have felt like both the parties are not speaking to the larger issue of truth and justice and all of those larger ideas. So if that's the end goal, that he's going to be the guy that's going to walk through the forest getting hit by the trees and all of that, but he's like, look, we need to establish a Justice for All Party. Now, that's the thing, like, you got to ask yourself, going back to the cognitive bias, is this the time for us to hold on to old mental models, or is this the time for us to think about maybe Because let's keep it real. Trump is a disruptor. So do you continue to go to war with a disruptor in a state of compliance? Or do you go to war with a disruptor as a disruptor? That's the thing, right? Because they're not moving by the same rules and regulations. And that's that's the frustration I get with the Democratic Party. The Democrats wants to move in accordance to the law. Trump is moving according to his will. Those are two different things.
But it's not just Donald Trump alone, Farajii. Again, Trump is...
No, it's not just Trump. I'm just talking about Trump and all that he represents. I'm just talking about all that he represents. It's not about him by himself as a person. And I'm saying Trump as an ideology, what he brings, right? A lot of the stuff that he brings, he's actually a continuation of the conservatism that we saw from Rush Limbaugh, Pat Buchanan. If you go back and look at those individuals, but he's continuation of that. But my point is, it's just that his philosophy, his ideology, this whole Trumper thing is a continuation. And so we got, and I think it's important for us as Black folks that we ask ourselves, is the current political landscape that we find ourselves in, based on my reference point and my view of politics as a Black voter, is this going to be consistent, or is this going to be, am I looking at this situation correctly? And that's why I started this conversation off with cognitive bias, because the bias is America's going to be okay. But you have a real disruptor that's running for president. He's a guy that has
I wish we would act like it, because right now, I get it, but at the end of the day, I do not think we have enough time within mere months, okay? As I stated, you have other elections that have happened, primaries, where you have had third parties on the ballot and they are losing.
Well, let me ask you this question.
If we were truly ready to change and have third party candidates, explain to me why they are not winning these tickets.
Because guess what? Because maybe, and then here's my only thinking on this.
Third party into the Oval.
Say it again.
How can we get a third party into the Oval if even the lower tier candidates?
And it may not. Here's the thing, Corinna. Here's the thing. Here's the thing that I think that could possibly happen. And I'm not saying that here's the thing that could possibly. This could be, and going back to what Kimberly said, it could be a thing where you're talking about certain ideas getting onto the Democratic's platform. That's what we're talking about here, right? Certain ideas, not necessarily him. But there's certain ideas.
And I think that's great. But in my view, I think Dr. West is very serious about taking a position in the Oval. I don't necessarily see, from what I have observed so far, that this is just an opportunity for him to disrupt. And let's be honest, I live in Florida. Even if I wanted to give Dr. West my vote, I cannot, because he will not be on my ballot.
No, he won't be on the ballot. But here's the thing.
For him to actually get on all the ballots, right? Even folks who would want to vote for him and support him, more than likely, he's not going to be on the ballot.
Look. Well, I want to jump in because I got to take a quick pause. But let me just say this very quickly. We are talking about a little bit like 6 months or maybe 6.5 months from the national election. Do you know, according to data, it shows that most people do not make decisions about who they're going to vote for until about a month or a month and a half before the election. It doesn't, a lot of people still don't know. Black folks, and I'm talking about black folks still don't know. Here's the thing. How do we take a moment like this, right, and leverage it? That's the question I think that we need to ask is, how do we leverage it? Are we going to completely say, no? Or are we going to say, okay, let's consider his ideas.
Great
let's
point.
Advocate. Let's
but
advocate
we need to
for
learn
his ideas.
how to seize a moment and an opportunity to
But what time? But here's my big question.
I'll keep saying it.
But that's the same thing they told Dr. King. That's the same thing they told Shirley Chisholm.
I didn't see anyone leveraging then. I can't recall any protests being organized to push back against Senator Tim Scott tanking the George.
But you can't. But Corinna, here's my thing. Like that happened.
Isn't that something that we wanted? Something that we were fighting for?
Well, let me ask you a question. If you said that's something that we wanted, didn't we say we want a black candidate? Didn't we say we want black candidates to run for office to speak?
But still,
we didn't say that.
It's something we wanted, and it tanked. I do not recall a response or a protest, not a one.
And guess what? You got, and see, check this out. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think that Black America, you said this at the beginning of your remark, that your concern and is that we haven't been able to gain political power because we have not seen maximum participation. I would say, I believe we may not see maximum participation because Black people are not excited about this election. Black America is not excited.
To your point, Farajii, that you just made, then how do we get a third party candidate into the Oval if our people?
It may not be an Oval. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's an Oval. I don't think it's an Oval. Let me take this break because my producer's going to beat me up. Let's take this break. Stay with us, folks. The conversation continues on the other side here on the Culture on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. This is an opportunity for us to be able to speak to our issues.
Y'all better understand something real quick. We ain't going nowhere.
It is a continual battle that we see all across this country. Revolution will not be televised. The revolution will be streamed.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
He makes sure that our stories are told.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sisters, Coretta Denise, my sister, Kimberly Morrow, as we talk about redefining politics, comply or disrupt. And this is the crossroads I think Black America, Black voters in this country will be standing at as we get closer and closer to our election in November. But Kimberly, I want to give you an opportunity to jump in because, Corinne and I don't want to dominate the time. But want to make sure that we hear everyone. And again, crew, we want to get what you have to say. Let me just say this. Let me start here. Because so many people are checking in and on the crew. So one of the things, we'll make sure we don't talk over each other because folks are like, I don't know who's talking. All right, so we're going to make sure we don't talk over each other. Pauline, you said, I already know who I'm going to vote for. That's Pauline Hurt. Thank you, Pauline, for checking. It's always good to connect with you. Absolutely. There are some people that do know who they're going to vote for. There are other people, maybe independents within the Democratic, who are under the Democratic umbrella, who may not know who they're going to vote for. Y'all remember, I quoted some data that said that 49% of Americans are now considered to be independent. Now, they're part of Republicans and Democratic Party, but they're considered to be independent. 49%. That's a huge group of people. And I threw it out there and I said, imagine if independents had an actual party. If you got the Democrats, Republican, and the Independent Party, who would be the largest party in America? We may see it. I don't know. Let me see here. Tiana, you said polls are not always right. You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct looking at that. And Willie Frazier, you said, and Cornel West isn't exciting a damn thing. Big brother Willie, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right, Kimberly, talk to me. What's your take? You got you on mute, Kimberly. There we go. She ready to go off.
Rewind.
Believe he said Cornel West is not exciting anything. Wow. Okay. Well, you know, I'm just, I guess that's just me. I love me some Cornel West. And to Corinna's point, where she said, you know, a third party can't win. You know, the last time a third party won was when Abraham Lincoln won. So it's definitely been a very long time since a third party won. But I'm going to stick with what I said, because first of all, I think Cornel West is intellectual, intelligent, savvy enough to know that if this goes in a certain direction, he doesn't want Donald Trump to be reelected to the office either.
Absolutely.
And I am very confident that if it came down to it and he felt that his campaign would be a spoiler for Biden and could put Trump in the office, I believe that he would do the right thing. So I truly believe that.
Hey, Kimberly, I don't think Corinna believes that.
The only reason I'm not, well, honestly, just of what I know of Dr. West, I would like to hope so. But the reason why I was like, is because in the synopsis you shared with us today, Farajii, in that video clip when Dr. West was talking to, what's her name? Is it Abby Phillips? Do I have that correct? On CNN?
Yeah. He was on CNN with Dr. Molina yesterday.
Yes, and the question was raised, like, you know, do you think your campaign, I'm reframing it because I'm not getting it exactly correct, y'all, but I'm just paraphrasing here, you know, will this in any way hurt Biden? Would this like basically allow Trump a win? And Dr. West's response was something along the lines of, we'll see. So that doesn't make me feel confident that he would just exactly turn this over. And I hear what you're saying, Kimberly. I'm not dismissing it. I do think it's a good idea. I just do not think that we have the time. How much time do you think it would take for us to make sure other minds are in line with what we're talking about in this conversation? A lot of folks won't see it that way. And to circle back, Farajii, it is mind-blowing to me how we still have folks who are undecided. And I know some folks personally who I've spoken to, undecided about who they're going to vote for. And you know what?
But let me ask you a question. Let me ask you this question. Are they undecided between Biden and Trump, or are they undecided between Biden and somebody else in the party?
Some of
or
everything.
Like a third party. Are they undecided between like a Cornel West and Biden, or is it like Biden and Trump?
I'm trying to make though, regardless of who it is, my point is that we are still civically ignorant in our communities. Enough of us don't understand how this process works, how we have to play a chess game per se, okay? And we forget, just 4 years ago, we came out of a pandemic, okay? Millions of people died. There would have been more lives lost. We lost more than needed to be lost when Trump was still in the Oval at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic back in 2020. And I think we forget that. And so my pushback here is we keep having these perpetual conversations as if we are discussing politics as usual. Now, I want to be clear, right? Because Lise shared something saying, you know, she's not saying that you can't have liberal candidates, but you need to build strong platforms first. And that is my point. And I have said before here on this show that when we start to maximize our voting power, when we actually demonstrate that we all want to collectively participate, where we could flood the ballot box to actually vote in a Cornel West, where he doesn't have to jump through hoops to try and get on 50 state ballots within mere months, then we can actually have a substantive conversation about a political party. But now I'm hearing that Kimberly is suggesting that maybe Dr. West is just using his campaign as being a disruptor. If that's the case, I can get with that. But I am not confident that that is actually the situation here. And the last thing I want to say, and I'm going to keep reiterating it, I understand the part of the Oval, but we are not speaking to the House and the Senate. And a president needs to have that. I would like to hear Dr. West say, you know, also, I need a Senate and a House that's going to be in alignment with my ideas so that legislation can pass. Now, I do think Dr. West does share some of what President Biden has done. As a matter of fact, a couple of years ago, he actually gave President Biden some praise where I kind of disagreed a little bit with him, where he said
their relationship fell apart.
President Obama to go after everything concerning race. And now it's kind of walking that back a little. So I think it's just a matter of, these are good ideas, but my concern is, do we have enough time to do so? And is everyone actually on the same page? I hear what you're saying, Kimberly, but I'm not confident that folks are looking at this as, oh, this is an opportunity to disrupt. At least not enough of us for the disruption to actually be successful and yield favorable result.
I think. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Farajii.
No, I was just going to say, I think that to the time point, this is a constant refrain within the conversation about progress. It's not the right time. And I'm looking at what some of you are saying, crew. Y'all keep saying not monkey confessions. You actually say monkey confessions. We do have the time. But my sister Shauna Marsh, you said, look, now is not the time. Earlier, some folks said, look, we cannot, I think, Tiana, you mentioned that. We don't want to rip the Band-Aid off too soon. When is the right time? Because last time I checked, Black folks in this country has never really thrived under any president.
Well, this would be
in
the
the
time
past
to
30
start
to
building
40
a
years.
platform. Start building up the coalition
Well,
now.
see, that's what I'm saying. Here's one, and look, and this is where I think we need to kind of look at this, and we got to take a quick pause. Are we looking at this from the lens of politics, or are we looking at this through the lens of liberation? Because if you look through the lens of politics, you will be confined to seeing it as votes, bills, elections. If you're looking at it through the lens of liberation, Black folks are tired, and we don't. And I'm gonna just say, I think sometimes we underestimate how dissatisfied Black folks are. Right? That you got a whole generation. You got young people now. You got older Black folks now who are like, man, I am tired. No, I'm telling you. I mean, people might be like, okay, I don't want Trump in office, but Trump in office, as crazy as this may sound to some, we have gone through the worst experiences as Black people in this country. And you mean to tell me we need to be afraid of 4 years of Trump, who may or may not even make it to November?
It will be a full-on dictatorship.
Hey, look, no. I don't want to. I don't even think that's the case, Corinna.
I know you don't, but it's
even if it's a full-on dictatorship, we can survive that. We survived the full-on
why
battle.
Fight and battle to survive that when it doesn't have to be here? So how tired are we really? If we're tired, then we're going to vote out the opposition who is against our very humanity. And
no. I think we're having a wrong conversation. And here's why. The wrong conversation is not with Black America and Trump. We need to talk to white voters, because those are the majority voters that put Trump in office. That's the problem. We need to look at Black people, whether it's 9%, 10%, 15%, that's not going to be I don't think, and this is Farajii speaking, I don't think that's going to be the tipping point. What about those white voters? What about those white voters that have put him into office, white women who support him regardless? That's the group. You go after the significant group. You don't go after the small portion. You go after the significant group. And we're not having conversations with or about white voters and how they feel about Trump now in 2024. And Trump is a liability for even white voters in this country. Because the stuff that he wants to do disrupts their quality of life. And so I think there's some different conversations that had to be had. All right, let me just take this another pause. Kimberly, you up next on the other side. Stay with us. It's TheCulture here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Got my sisters Corinna Denise, got my sister Kimberly Morrow. We in it now, y'all. We are in it, having these conversations. And you can tell by whole Corinna's, her whole energy right now. She's like, I ain't for the games today, Farajii. I ain't for these games. I am not for these games today. You want that smoke? I'm going to give you that smoke. That's all good. You know what I'm saying? That's all good. Let's talk about, and Kimberly, you're going to be up next. I just want to highlight some of the comments from the crew. Frankie said, liberation starts with top up and bottom down working together. It is. It's got to be. That's what I'm saying. If we look outside of the lens of politics, quote unquote, and look outside and then look through the lens of liberation, I think that will give us in my view, I think that will give us a different picture, right? It will change up the bias that we have been we often use. Cindy D, you said Obama couldn't be the president for black people. He was the president for everyone, and he would have gotten roasted for it. He walked a fine line, talking and saying that to you, Corinna, making that point. Thank you, Cindy. Shauna, my sister, you said Trump said he will be a dictator if he gets back into office. I take him at his word. That man lies. That man has lied. And the thing is, he still needs Congress, right? So going back to your point, Corinna, he still needs Congress in order to make that happen. And if we do focus on those statewide elections and those congressional elections, that's certainly one thing. But the Oval Office, and then again, this is not about saying, oh, Dr. West is going to be in the office. I'm talking about let's change up the ideas. What are the new ideas? What are the progressive ideas that we can advocate for to the Democratic Party? That, like Kimberly said, that the Biden-Harris administration said, you know what, we should include this into our platform. Because here's the thing, I don't want us to set it up where as if Dr. West and Dr. Molina hasn't been committed. They're more committed than any other political candidate we've had. And their work speaks for them. So as black people, do we just say, no, just because they don't fit the political mold, but they fit the liberation model? We got to figure that out. All right, Kimberly, talk to me. What's your take?
Yes. So I want to go back to what you all were saying about the number of voters that are still undecided. And so we don't want to dismiss a Cornel West or otherwise people are, who do they have? RFK? Like he's ridiculous. But you have a number of independents who are really taking a serious look at RFK. So I'm just saying, let's just have the conversation. Let's at least take a look at his platform. Let's engage. Let's not be so dismissive, because the bottom line, there are a number of undecided voters. If we don't get ahead of the conversation and try to steer the conversation as opposed to cutting it off, because there are a number of people who they're looking at Trump like, nope. They're looking at Biden like, nope. And they're looking at something extra. And I'm not saying Cornel West is the answer. I know RFK is not the answer. I am just saying let's at least engage, because there are pieces of his platform that Biden-Harris administration could definitely embrace and adopt. And Cornel West, again, he's not. I think somebody in the comments said, Barack Obama was the president for all. If you read Cornel West's platform, he is more of a progressive. That's why he supported Bernie Sanders. So his platform is truth, love, and justice for all. And so I think he's more for the common man and the common worker. I just don't want us to shut it down. I would like to see us engaging in conversation around it, whether we're going to support him or not, at least support what his platform is saying and try to help send a message to the Biden-Harris administration that these are pieces of his platform that resonate with not just Black people, but people in a lower socioeconomic demographic.
And Kimberly, what's your take on this idea? Like, if Dr. West is using himself as the sacrificial lamb in terms of establishing the Justice for All party, and of course, this party, I mean, back to Corinna's point, this party is not going to get off the ground in 2024, but they could lay the groundwork and the foundation for a run in 2028 if they move forward on establishing this party. So we're talking about a Justice for All party. What's your take on that?
Well, I would like to see more people, more congressional candidates become aligned with it, because we know that a lot of this work doesn't just take place from the Oval Office, as Corinna has said multiple times. It takes place on the statewide level as well as on the federal level. So I would have to see if more people would be willing to join this political party, people who are planning to run in state races, before I actually really. Yeah,
I would agree. I remember being at the Justice or Else gathering. It was a major gathering. It was the 20-year anniversary of the historic Million Man March. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan called for it. And I remember him distinctly saying in 2015 that he said, we need to have a Justice Party political party. And I remember him stating that, and everybody was like, whoa, like this way. He said, it don't have to be nothing related to what the work that we do in the Nation of Islam or any other place. But he said, we need to have a party that is going to be dedicated to justice, because he said, that's one of the few principles, that's one of the few ideals that can bring people together. And so when I read that Dr. Cornel West was talking about establishing a Justice for All party, again, I'm like, we're not talking about for 2024. We're talking about for maybe 2028. But what'd you say?
We got to make that very clear that we're talking.
Yeah, that's very clear. I think it is very clear. But here's the thing. You got to put the seed in people's minds early, because we're so conditioned to thinking in one particular way, like the two-party system, and to Kimberly's point, that we don't even want to consider something different. We're thinking like
that's true. I don't think it's not that people don't want to consider something different. Let's just rewind back and speak to, we talk a lot about these two political parties. Let's make something very clear. White supremacy is a floating signifier between the both of them, and that has been since the founding of this country, right? At a certain point in time, after the Civil War ended, Reconstruction, we got a lot of progress through the Republican Party. As time shifted, we moved forward with the Civil Rights era. We got a lot of movement through the Democratic Party, right? I live in the state of Florida. I mean, in the social context, I guess for a matter's sake, right? I am a registered Democrat. But just in my views and me voting on policy and not necessarily for people, then I could probably consider myself an independent. I am not registered as an independent voter, though. And you know why? Because I want to have access to the ballot.
Okay? Which is understandable.
To vote in a primary election. So I want to make sure folks understand that, right? So we have to be very clear. And I think all to your ideas, Farajii, Kimberly, I hear you guys. And I want you guys to know and understand, I hear what you're saying, to build up a platform. We don't want to just necessarily shut down the conversation. My concern is just we have to be strategic as to how we relay that information to other people, because there are some other people who are looking at this very vaguely. Oh, who do I want to vote for? And they'll just go into the ballot box and not even vote down ballot. So we have to realize how all of these pieces are interconnected together. And one more thing, when we're talking about third political parties, there have been several. I mean, in all honesty, if we were to really count, it's probably like the 20th political party or something like that. But I keep hearing we need to form this party and that party. What I do not hear is how are we going to organize and mobilize people, voters, to have the infrastructure we actually need to have to accomplish a goal of getting a third party. So we're so frustrated with these two-party systems. I understand that, but at the same time, I'm raising the question, how frustrated are we really? Because we are not already participating in the process that exists. The only way that we can change it is to study the current system, understand it so that we can change it. So that's what I'm speaking to. So I would really like to hear, how do we organize to get this third party brewing for 2028?
Well, I think what we're doing today, for example, is a prime example of how to organize it. Like, there's no better time to talk about political power than during an election season. If we do it in a different, if we do it in a quote unquote off year, it doesn't resonate with people.
We should be talking about it all the time.
Yeah, but here's the only thing about that, and I agree with you. But here's the thing. People are becoming conscious when they become conscious. I'll never forget when Eddie Conway, a Black Panther, may he rest in peace, he said it to me. He said, you can't dictate, or there's no timeline for people's consciousness. People become conscious when they become conscious. And so at this point, we just got to work with the timeline and the consciousness of where people are at this moment. We can't go back. You're right. We should have made an uproar about Tim Scott and what he did to the Justice for Policing Act. We should have made an uproar about a lot of stuff. You know, one of the great our culture crew members said that we should have, let me just say this very quickly before we take our next pause. And I think that she's right on point. Stephanie Humphrey, you said the right time was keeping momentum from the civil rights movement. She said, we build around situations like George Floyd's murder and others. We need a sustainable model to the movement that keeps going. And that's the part. This is all that's happening, is that we've had marches. I referred to the Justice or Else March. That was 2015 when those ideas came out. We were right in the middle of police killings and all of that stuff before Donald Trump got into office. We had that great demonstration and other demonstrations since that time. And guess what? Black folks, we unfortunately have been distracted and disrupted, and all of this other stuff has happened from the enemy of our rise. So now we are at this point. And so we can keep looking at the past and say we should have been conscious. But imagine if you've been doing this type of work for 60 years. Imagine if you are Dr. Cornel West and you looking back and you're like, damn, he's here as a man who's 70 years old. And he's like, damn, they still ain't wake up yet? It happens when it happens. But guess what? We're going to all run into the reality of the truth, and we cannot sit on the sidelines anymore. And I think that's the part that all three of us play, is that we got to encourage people. You don't have the liberty to sit on the sidelines anymore. We can't. America is not the same place that we grew up in 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. We're in a very different country, and we got to readjust our mental models to really handle what we're currently looking at. And I think that's the thing. That's the thing. Why haven't we done all of these things? Because we weren't prepared for it. We weren't mentally, we weren't ready to accept it. But now we're ready to accept this. And this idea is an idea whose time has come, because now we're seeing two Black folks that are putting ideas out there that represent the things that we say that we love: truth, justice, and love. Will they get into the White House? Probably not. But can we make a statement? That's up to us. I think that's really up to us. We got to take a final break. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
All right, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Hey, can we bring Coretta and Kimberly back into the frame here? Coretta, I just saw your post. I just saw your comment in the chat.
I know. They're looking at me. Farajii looking at me crazy today.
All right, Kimberly, talk to me. What's your final thought on this? I'm not looking at you crazy, Corinne.
What's my final thought on this whole third party thing?
It's just a final thought on what we're somebody doing. I think we're coming to some level of understanding, and I think we all understand what stakes are and everything. But I do believe that we all want the same thing. We want political power. We want to make some gains. And now we're trying to figure out how to get there. You're not talking end goal. We're talking strategies and tactics. So what's your take on this as we try to get some ending to this part of the conversation?
You got to premise it with that.
Yes. So I want to make it clear that Joe Biden has my vote. I'm not going to make that vague. He does. But Cornel West also has my attention. I'm looking at his platform, and if there's a way that I can help engage the conversation further and help send a message to the Biden-Harris campaign that there are elements of his campaign that I would like to see added to your campaign, then most certainly that is what I would do. But at no way, because I understand the idea of a candidate being a spoiler. Like I said, right now, RFK could possibly be a spoiler in the election with Joe Biden. And so I want people to really go to Cornel West's page and look at his platform. And if you are inspired, send a message to the Biden-Harris campaign and say, hey, this is something that you all should take a look at. Engage him in the conversation. So that is my position on it. Simply make sure that we are looking at it, taking it serious, doing our homework, and engaging with him.
There it is. I love it. Love it. All right, Corinna, what's your final remarks on this?
Well, I concur. I can understand and appreciate that, to take a look at Dr. West's platform. But I also want to, bring awareness to the fact that we have a lot of folks who have never even looked at the Biden-Harris administration's platform at all. They haven't looked at the things that they have accomplished, the legislation that has been passed. So why is our attention only, at its peak in an election year, right? I want to circle back to that. If we want to see real change and progress, if we're so tired, we shouldn't just be waiting every 4 years during a presidential election where now we're having these conversations. We should be having the third party conversation in the off year. How do you build momentum? How do you build the infrastructure or the platform that you're going to need to have ready to go and green light in the actual election year? And so these conversations have to happen in the off year. We have elections every 2 years, right? And there's for our House and our Senate, re-elections every 6 years for them, but pretty much there's an election every year, whether it's local, state, or federal. And a lot of us are not engaged in the process 24/7, 365. And until we get at least half of that, how are we going to see real change? So I would implore folks, not just during an election season. Yes, we can go and see what Dr. West is talking about, but Biden-Harris has been in office for the past 4 years. And let's be real, a lot of people do not know what has been accomplished. And that's why you're going to have someone like a Sexy Red opening up their mouth and putting their brain on display, like Dr. Carr would say, and say that Trump gave her a check, when he actually withheld the funds so that he could have his name on the check to make people believe otherwise. And so my concern is that we're not getting the information in totality that we need to really navigate and decipher through all of these things. There's a lot of gray area. So again, we need to be informed all the time what's happening currently. And you shouldn't just be taking an interest in what Biden-Harris has done in an election year. Everything is there. Congress.gov. Yes, we need to do our research. And to your point, Kimberly, I think that's great. If we're going to look at Dr. West's platform here, what can we implement? But then let's also see what aligns. I'm pretty confident there are some things that might already be there that they're in agreement in, because again, Dr. West was a supporter of President Biden. I'm not sure exactly how much now, so that he's in the race as a disruptor per se. I think that still has yet to be seen. But I just want to make sure we're dotting all our I's and crossing all our T's, y'all, because a lot is at stake. And Farajii, this is no surviving Trump, okay? That can't be more surviving Trump, that is not an option because that's translation survival of the fittest. That's what.
Well, you know what though? Honestly, if it takes 4 years to wake us up to who we are,
it will not be no 4 years, and I don't even know.
Or 2 years, or whatever the case may be. I don't see it.
We're not tired enough.
And let me just say this very quickly. As much as we talk about the impending doom of a Trump administration, how come we just not seeing that level of energy, that fervor from Black people to prepare for that? If we talking about Project 2025, we talking about all these things, right? We're still on some, I don't know. We're still on some weekend time. We're not in Monday through Friday work time. You see what I'm saying? And it's not like people don't know. I truly do believe that Black folks know. We're just choosing.
Not enough of us. There are large factors.
We're just choosing. And I think that if we understand, more importantly, as we close, we understand that this is so much bigger. This is so much bigger than the personality of a Joe Biden or Donald Trump or Dr. Cornel West. This is so much bigger. This is really about us. Because none of these men are going to save us from ourselves. We gotta have to do something, right? And I think that's what it is. And I think you don't like my music, you said it. Dr. West is trying to change the conversation. We should support that. Dr. West is trying to change the conversation, but I think even more so, those of us who are knowledgeable, who have been kind of like keeping our eyes on the watch on what's going on politically, we have to change the conversation. We have to change the conversation.
And it shouldn't take a Dr. West announcing his candidacy for us to be in these conversations. That is
it shouldn't, but guess what? Guess what? As much as it shouldn't, and I think you're absolutely right, no doubt. But that's how we've been conditioned in America to truly believe that the government will resolve all of our problems. We do it on a local level, we do it on a state level, and we do it on a federal level. Now, what we're seeing is a shift where we're finally coming alive, and this is not just for Black voters, this is for white people in this country and all other people in this country. We're finally realizing that the government does not have all of the resources, it does not have what it takes to truly address all of the ongoing issues and concerns that every person in this country has. It just doesn't have the capacity for that until the citizens say, I'm going to be a partner with the government on a local, state, or on a federal level. We got to be active and engaged at this point.
I would just push back a little. I don't know if I necessarily
don't push back now, Corinna. The show is over.
I know, but I'm just saying that we're conditioned to believe that the government is just going to solve all our problems. I think if we wholeheartedly believed in that, then we participate in who actually gets these government positions because the people have.
We're disenfranchised. It's not completely. Look, you can't get mad at Black people or any person for feeling like their government has failed them. We have turned out and votes time and time again. It's not like we don't vote. So I don't want anybody. Black people vote, and we vote probably more consistently than any other group in this country. We vote.
But there's some areas that we're not voting in, and now, like Louisiana, got to deal with a.
But that's because at the end of the day, like I said, we're going to bring some smoke. I'm tired of bringing smoke to Black voters. Let's start smoking the white voters.
All right, well, let's organize them into the third party for 2028 then, since that was the topic of discussion.
Hey, we maybe have to do it. All right, gotta go. Appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. Corinna Denise, my sister Kimberly Morrow. Kimberly, you want to say something? You got 10 seconds.
Yes.
10 seconds.
I want to say.
I got to get off air.
Yes, I gotta say happy birthday to my firstborn, Kimberly
Come on.
Robinson. Today is her birthday, April 12th. Happy birthday! I love you, daughter.
Birthday!
There it is. Happy birthday, daughter. There we go. Appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much for joining me as always on Fridays. Look forward to connecting with you next Friday. And Kimberly, we got some. Next Friday we got a special guest host, courtesy of Kimberly. Can't wait till I talk about it. Yes, she's going a special guest, not host, but she got a special guest next week. Can't wait to bring him on. So we'll do that. All right, sisters, thank y'all so much for being so good for the culture.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I thank y'all. Make sure y'all follow us on all social media platforms, and thank you for your support. Up next, Corolla Martin Unfiltered. Never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. I'm your brother Farajii Muhammad. Look forward to talking to you next week for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Peace. Have a great weekend.